Welcome back everyone, Crypto Father here. It's Saturday afternoon and we've decided to pick up today and go camping. It's a very sunny day and I'm walking right in the direction of the sun. It's probably gonna set early today. Korea's a mountainous country. It's November, so it's a surprise that it isn't any colder, I guess, than this. But as a result, the sun sets quite early. So I figure maybe another hour of sunlight left before it gets really dark, and the sun's gonna set right behind that mountain behind me and it'll be dark. So it wasn't always like this. Campgrounds such as this one are literally the result of Korea's economic growth. Up until about a decade ago, Koreans worked. They worked hard, and most of the land around mountains, around streams such as this one here running along behind me, was either occupied by farmland or was simply a forest. People didn't really didn't attach any value to this land. But over the past 10 years, when Korea's economy picked up and people started making a lot more money, wealth started flowing into the country from various sources, and people started to pay more attention to the lifestyle of the Western world, I guess you could say. There was a lot more of West on television. The Korean culture has become slightly more westernized in the past few years, and you can definitely see differences in the younger generation, Koreans of my generation, and those who, they're children, I guess. Let's have a seat over here. So while Korea's economy grew, so did people's appetite for the outdoors, I guess, for a better lifestyle, for a lifestyle that didn't only include work. People were much more eager to spend more time with their families, to spend more time outdoors and enjoying the fruits of their labor. People were making money, but they didn't really know how to spend it, I guess. Everybody was just saving and putting it away. But these days, I think the trends of camping has boomed, and people became a lot more conscious of the need to spend leisure time with your family and to spend some leisure time outside of the city. And so campgrounds such as the one we came to visit today have blossomed all around Korea. And if you leave the old city of Ulsan, just outside of the city of Ulsan, on the way to Anyang, which is a smaller city, you can drive through mountains and streams running between in the valleys, and all along the streams you will see campgrounds and pensions and all kinds of resorts, resort type businesses that were not there, maybe 5 or 6, even 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you can see the wealth people carry mostly by looking at some of the cars people drive. That's another thing that's changed dramatically since I think Chrysler struck a deal to or Chevy struck a deal to build a factory in South Korea. So the conglomerates between countries strike deals all time, and governments pass laws according to those deals. They always make it seem like it's meant for the people, but it's really not. So I guess it was about 4 or 5, no, it must have been longer. This was in 2008, I believe. when Chevrolet opened a factory in South Korea and basically bought out a car maker, bought out the Daewoo car maker, and started producing Chevys in Korea. And around that same time, so shortly before that was made public, I guess, Korea announced that the taxes for import cars were being lowered. And so people, I guess, assumed that, the Korean government was finally doing something for the people. People were going to have access to cheaper imports, because normally on every import was levied with about 50% taxes on every imported car. So if you purchased a BMW from Germany that was imported from Germany for $50,000, you'd be paying around $100,000 here. These taxes were lowered slightly once Chevrolet made its footprint here in South Korea and started making cars, because obviously that had to be done so that Chevy could sell the imports here, even though they're produced here, but they're still seen as imports. They're not local cars. Obviously they're not Korean cars. So in order for companies like Chevy to come in and start manufacturing their products here in Korea, the government had to lower taxes on purchasing imported cars or foreign cars. And me personally, I really don't care. I don't like Chevy. I couldn't care less for American cars personally. I much more prefer and value the Korean-made cars. They're solid cars. I drive one myself. It's an old beat-up 2004. 2004, and it runs smoothly, it runs great, and some of the Korean cars are mint. They're really good. They're quite pricey here as well, actually. So I really have no problem with Korean cars. I see no purpose in purchasing foreign cars, but people with really good economics, household economics, who are doing really well for themselves, who will purchase Range Rovers, which here cost $150,000 for a Range Rover. BMWs, Peugeots, and Mercedes cars and stuff like that. The kids are settled in. We're drinking coffee. So all in all, it's really nice to get out of the city. Listen to roosters crowing out in the countryside. Behind me there is a little farmhouse, an owner of a taxi, or a taxi driver living out here, I guess. This could be his weekend house, quite possibly. A lot of people have abandoned the countryside here for the cities. When I came here in 2005, there was a definite movement. People moving out of countrysides, I guess, away from farming into the cities where jobs were plentiful. Most people were working in factories, and they still do to this day. But there is a larger movement now towards the tourism, the growing tourist economy here in South Korea, because China is dominating with cheap products and with the way they produce products, like the ships. I guess cars are still on the go, but China can manufacture things for a lot less, a lot quicker, which leaves countries like South Korea with their economy, somewhat shaken. So that's a problem. So I've heard some opinions that Korea will have to, in the near future, will have to begin switching their economy into a tourist-based economy rather than a manufacturing-based economy. And I am speculating that this idea and what's happening with HHI may be propelling in some way the relationships or the attempts at a peaceful establishment of relationships between the North and South Koreas right now. And my speculation is that the conglomerates running the country here, the Samsungs, the SKs, the S oils, the LGs, the HHIs, the manufacturing companies are realizing that within the next 10 or 15 years, it will become unsustainable to continue producing things in South Korea while having a competitor like China right next door producing things for, much quicker and for a lot cheaper, like I said. So I could see the move of the South Korean government towards re-establishing ties with the North as being a strategic one in order to open the borders to the North, for development. Because if that happens, I assume that there will be millions and millions of tourists wanting to come in and have a look at North Korea and see what it's like. So if South Korea is the first one to be able and allowed to enter North Korea and begin to develop it, and build hotels and tourist attractions and whatnot, then it'll be a lot easier for the conglomerates to switch over from their current producing market to a tourist-based economy. That's just my speculation, conspiratorial roots taking hold. To give you an example, Samsung is one of the biggest smartphone and electronics producer in the world, and for I don't know how many years, enough I guess, for many years, China was its main location of its production offices. That has changed. Samsung has moved the majority of its electronic productions to Vietnam, and while I worked for SK or S Oil, actually I worked for both, teaching. So to let you know, my full-time job here is an English teacher. So that's my employment. That's what I've been doing for the past 10 years. So I've taught people from all walks of life, I guess, in Korea and outside of Korea as well, over the past 1.5 decades. And while I taught the executive officers at S Oil, I was one of them referred to Vietnam as the new China. And what he meant by that was, Vietnam was being looked at in terms of economics, in terms of profitability for these large companies that were moving their manufacturing plants away from China, which apparently is becoming less profitable as time goes, due to its rapid development, I assume. It's a lot easier to pay people less in underdeveloped countries, or in countries that are still under development, than it is in developed countries. That's why products made in Canada and the United States tend to be a lot more expensive. And so it goes with South Korea. That's why, Apple produces all of its, or I don't know if still, but has been producing all of its smartphones, all of its devices in China, and assembling them in China. The only thing that's made in the United States is the software, right? We realize that. If you open your smartphone, maybe that's the reason why Apple locked it. You're not able to change your battery now. It's inaccessible, but everything's made in China. The only thing that's made in the United States is the software. Anyway, so Samsung has moved the majority of their production companies into Vietnam. Since, as I was told, Vietnam is the new China due to its lower cost of productions. And that's what's happening. So these manufacturing companies started in South Korea. When labor became too expensive, they moved to China. And once again, when labor became too expensive in China, they moved now to Vietnam. These little patches of farmland are scattered all across Korea. This is pretty much what happens when you have a country with limited land. It's very mountainous region. There isn't a lot of flatland, so to speak. So property prices can be quite high, and since Korea for many years was a very farming oriented country, you will be able to, as you drive along the countryside, you will see small strips of farmland, cabbages and potatoes, whatever else people can grow, lining up along streets and streams and rivers. So, as I mentioned, I could see North Korea uniting with South Korea being a strategic move in order to secure Korea's economy, which apparently seems to be, I think I mentioned in an earlier video that Hyundai heavy industry, the ship producing portion of the company, is suffering at the moment. People are losing jobs. The part of Ulsan that was basically home to Hyundai Heavy Industries, HHI, is seeing a huge loss of business. People can't afford to run small businesses anymore. Fewer workers, fewer employees in the HHI industries means that there's fewer people wanting to eat during the breaks. So as a result of the company laying people off, smaller businesses like restaurants and other services are shutting down because the population is dwindling, and so business is dwindling, and so a lot of spaces are for rent or for sale simply due to small business owners being unable to sustain an income. It's a vicious cycle. So South Korea, North Korea, I can see it turning within the next 20 years, turning into a tourism industry driven economy, which may not be a bad thing. It'll clear up the air. It's definitely gonna affect people's lives in a huge way to some extent. Others will be very happy about it, but in the long run, I think I think the entire world should move away from manufacturing. World's economies are changing. Cryptocurrencies are taking over. It's part of it. It will happen. I firmly believe it. So if you're a crypto holder, hold it. Keep it, hold it. Don't worry about how much it's worth in fiat, because fiat will become obsolete over the years. If you're able to invest into cryptocurrencies, do so at small parts and just stock up on them, because there will be a day, there will be a year, time will come when you will be happy you have.
Camina en cualquier dirección y con la mente de ideas llena. En la cabeza sientes la afección y la necesidad de escuchar alguna voz serena. Por los caminos hechos no te vayas, te llevarán al único destino. Mejor saltar las fronterizas vallas y siempre ser un clandestino.
So in the heat of the moment, I seem to have completely forgotten about the outro. So we're back in the office here, under my daughter's bed, and it's Crypto Father saying, till next time, if you liked the video, like it, subscribe to the channel for more updates, and I hope to see you in the next one. And the next one will be topicalized dogs in Korea. I recorded it this morning. I will post it tomorrow. So I will try to keep up on top of things. I will make a little walk and talk each morning. I will choose a different topic and I'll try to to engage you into some conversation about Korea. I hope I can see you here again to share some of my insights about the country and its culture. So once again, Crypto Father signing out. Till next time, peace.